Even though I've been living in Guadalajara, Mexico, which is often called the city of eternal spring, I still love getting cozy at this time of year and watching movie marathons with some hot cocoa. And I wanted to talk today about one of my favorite holiday movies. It's from 2003 and it's called Love Actually. And I even made my friend Mark watch the movie just so we could discuss the accents together for you. And even if you've never seen it, the skill of listening more closely to how people speak in movies is something I'm really obsessed with. So today I want to show you some things that you're kind of missing out on by not noticing or maybe not knowing about these pronunciation and accent differences. We're also going to talk about how accents are sometimes watered down for international audiences, some specific differences you can notice in a Welsh and an Irish accent, and what we really mean when we say RP or standard British accent. I hope you enjoy this episode as much as we did making it for you. I'm Bianca, your personal American accent coach, and I'm here to help you master an American accent in English because your voice is your choice when it comes to how you sound. I try to release a podcast episode every 2 weeks, and so you should really subscribe to whatever podcast platform you use so that you don't miss the newest episode. If you want to see the full video of the episode, it's available at Accent Coach Bianca on YouTube. Now, let's get on with the show. I'm so happy to see you because I haven't seen you in a long time, me personally. But I wanted to say we wanted to do this Christmas episode because it's one of my favorite movies. And so I wanted to talk to you because you have a lot more knowledge about the accents in the movie. I know you pretty well, but other people don't. So if you could do a quick introduction of yourself, that would be great.
So my name is Mark Byron Dallas, and I'm a dialect coach or accent coach, as I'm also known. So basically what I do is I help mainly actors sound like other people.
Because they're acting.
Yeah. Sometimes actors, when they're playing a role, their character that they're playing tends to be from another place and will often sound different to the way that the actor themselves sounds. So that's when an accent or dialect coach will come in and help them to sound like they're from that place. So that's what I do.
Yeah. And for people who don't know, that's kind of the difference between when we say dialect coach and accent coach. It sounds like it might be the other way around, but actually a dialect coach is helping actors generally, whereas an accent coach is generally helping anybody. And also I'm an accent coach, but I also work with actors too, generally whose first language is not English. So you might be more likely to work with somebody whose first language is English, but they're trying to get a much more specific accent or idiolect even to portray a specific person. Awesome. Yeah. So glad to see you again, Mark. And I don't know what you celebrate around this time of year, but I love Christmas time. I love, the decorations. We both forgot our hats and our ugly sweaters today. I don't know what we were thinking, but I love this time of year. And this is honestly one of my favorite movies. And I think you hadn't seen it before I brought it up, right? Was this the first time you saw it?
It is the first time I saw it. Yeah. I've heard of it. I had heard of this movie. I mean, you have to be living under a rock not to have heard of this movie, but I'd never actually watched it. And then when you said, okay, so I want to talk about this movie because I love it, I thought, okay, I watch it. I watched it. I thought, what is this?
How did I never see this before? Yes. And I love it because of all the different kinds of love. I feel like in English, we don't have enough variety in the words of love. Like there's so many languages and they have different words for different kinds of love. And I like this movie because it really portrays that really well, I think. So let's talk about it. The movie is called Love Actually, and it's got a long list of famous people who are playing this. And you might know better than I. There's the human, there's the actor, and let's say their natural speaking accent. There's the character that they're playing. And I think it's important to talk about this movie now because I know that I've seen this movie 100 times. And I know a lot of Americans have seen this movie and they don't really notice the subtle differences, right? They might be like, oh, that's a general British accent, but most of us don't know. So today we're going to talk about some of those fine distinctions and what lies beneath the surface that a lot of us might not be picking up. So I'm really excited to have you talk about this. Do you have a specific character that you want to start with?
Well, the thing is about this movie is that there's so many big names. I mean, I don't really have a favorite character in this, but what amazed me about the movie was that this got made. I mean, how could they afford to make this movie? And,
right?
Yeah. I mean, it must have cost them a bomb to make this. Not because of any effects or anything. There are no special effects that I can see or special anything, except that it's like, oh my word, Hugh Grant is in it. Liam Neeson's in it. Colin Firth is in it. Laura Linney, Emma Thompson, like all these big names. Bill Nye.
Keira Knightley. Yeah,
Bill
exactly.
Nye's one of the best ever. And of
Gosh,
course,
yeah, so
and Rowan
good.
Atkinson just pops up
Yeah, you're like, oh my gosh, look.
as a minor character, right?
It's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So really, none of those kind of like sort of like stand out.
It's hard
for
to
me.
pop out. Yeah.
Although there is one actress in it who is Welsh, and I've only ever seen her in one other thing. And I'm struggling to remember her name now. I'm sorry, but she was in Gavin and Stacey. And I don't know if many of your viewers have ever seen. It's a TV show and was wildly popular. And basically, the actress that is in this movie, she plays Stacey in Gavin and Stacey. And it's kind of like a show about a love between, it's a very wholesome TV show. It's about the love between Gavin and Stacey, as the name would suggest. Stacey is from Wales. So she's.
I know who you're talking about. Let me interrupt you real quick. Joanna Page, right? I haven't seen this series, but I know the actress you're talking about. And so she's Welsh. Okay. Yeah. And she's also in the movie Love Actually that we're talking about.
Exactly. And that's why I mentioned. Yeah, I guess we could start with her because she's one that sort of surprised me. It's like, oh, it's her. So I don't know the TV show. And she speaks with, a lot of people might not notice this, but she has a Welsh accent in it. Well, because she's Welsh. But I think that the South Welsh accent that she's using in the movie, it doesn't have all the bells and whistles and features that you might hear in other shows, right? Because this was made for the international market. Mainly Americans and so on, that they wanted to make sure that people could understand what they were saying. And so, not that Welsh people can't speak English very well.
Not the case,
saying, but there's a lot of variety in the way that people throughout Britain speak English. And so whenever you've got a movie that is made for a bigger market, they tend to make the accents a bit more homogenous. They try to make them so that people don't have to necessarily turn on the subtitles.
Which is kind of funny because as a US citizen, I'm watching this movie and it almost would be better if they kept in a more kind of pronounced, heterogeneous kind of accent variety, let's say. So we would be more likely to hear those differences. Do you know what I mean? When they're kind of like more subtle, it's really hard for us. So I can imagine that there's a lot of people in the US who could not tell you a thing or even point out this is a Welsh accent. So can you give us a quick sample of what like Joanna Page might sound like, something that we could pick out and we could say, oh, that's probably Welsh. Is there a feature that you can think of?
Yeah, definitely. Would it be better if we watched the clip first?
I thought I was never going to make it here today. The traffic was just
unbelievable.
Yeah. Judy, could you take the top off this time? Lighting and camera need to know when we're actually going to see the nipples and when we're not.
Yes, okay. Right. Well, at least it's nice and warm in here.
Yeah, it's not always the case.
There we go. So we're talking about this specific actress who's Welsh, right? Most Americans are not even going to notice what a Welsh accent kind of is. They're not going to notice it. And like you said, they toned it down.
Yeah, well, just to give you an example of a kind of a Welsh accent, this is one that I'm doing now. And typically what you might hear from someone who is from Wales, I mean, there are lots of different accents from around Wales. So this particular actor, I'm going back to my own accent now, but this particular actor, she's from Wales. And what I heard from what she just said, she said, oh, it's lovely and warm in here. Now, the one feature that you may not have heard, but if you were to play it back, whereas someone who's speaking RP or like received pronunciation, that is sometimes called the standard accent, or a lot of North Americans know as the British accent. What you'd hear in an RP accent in modern RP would be here. So H-E-R-E, it's nice and warm in here. And in a more classic RP accent, somebody a little bit older, you would hear here, right? You'd hear, it's nice and warm in here. Now, what she says is very Welsh, and it is here. And sometimes for some people from Wales, they might drop the H. So it might be yeah. And in fact, the words that I would pronounce as here, as in H-E-R-E and H-E-A-R, those are homophones. But the word ear and the word year, I-E-A-R, for some speakers from Wales, they would say them all the same. So you'd say, oh, it's lovely and warm in here, or lovely and warm in here, this is my year, and I've had these for many years. So all of those words might sound exactly the same. So that's a feature that came out from what she said.
Nice.
However, in most of the way she speaks, how this character speaks, it's only a very slight sprinkling of a Welsh accent. Whereas in the other show, and Gavin and Stacey, if anybody gets a chance to see that, you'll hear that her accent is quite different. And you definitely hear a big difference to how a lot of the other British people in this film speak.
I have to say, I love the Welsh accent, and I love the kind of lilt that it has. I love the musicality, the prosody of it. So it's really interesting that we brought this up, because most people aren't even going to notice it. And here's like one little thing that they can take away and then can kind of apply to it. Also, I think when we were mentioning earlier how, because it's made for an international audience, that it's toned down. I think when she says to Martin Freeman on the steps, they have their first date, and she says that classic line, "All I want for Christmas is you."
All I want for Christmas is you.
You noticed something about how she said Christmas, and she's like, wait a minute, that was actually kind of toned down a little. Can you explain what you meant by that?
Yeah, the way she pronounces Christmas, it's very close to the way an RP speaker would say it. So she says, all I want for Christmas is you. And RP, that would be, all I want for Christmas is you. But in her own accent, where I've heard her say the word Christmas, and like a lot of other people from Wales might say it as Christmas. All I want for Christmas is you, right? Christmas. So there's a couple of little features there. One is the R in Christmas. It's a tap. So instead of being like a Christmas, you hear in other accents. In a lot of Welsh accents, it becomes a tap. So Christmas. And the other thing is the unstressed syllable. In a lot of Welsh speakers, they will make those into a full vowel. So instead of Christmas, it becomes Christmas.
Yeah, it's not reduced at all, right? So for us, or for me, I should say, that would be a schwa sound, Christmas, miss. And for her, it does sound like the syllable stress is almost equal, not quite, but because the vowel is longer, I feel like that's how I can hear it.
So it comes out as like a secondary stress rather than unstressed. So in this one, she says Christmas. Whereas she would usually, I've heard her say Christmas. So it's a little bit different.
And this is super interesting to me because, like we said, the point is, like, most people aren't going to pick up on these things. They're not going to see what you're seeing, not only because you're from there too, so you have a different eye, but also because of what we know from coaching as well. So maybe we can take the lens and go from this micro, zoom back out to the kind of the macro, when a minute ago you were saying how, like, oh, very general British accent. Maybe we can talk about some of the big, more broader accents and names. For example, like you've got Hugh Grant, right? With what we might just quote call a posh accent, right? And then you've got Colin Firth, who sounds really similar, but maybe there's some differences in there. And I know that there's a slight difference. Maybe you can explain between RP and like estuary, for example. Do you think you could talk a little bit about that in more of a general sense?
Yeah, so probably a good case in point here. A lot of the actors in this movie are RP speakers, which you said the word posh. I mean, posh is obviously, that's more of a perception. Like we have an idea of what posh means. RP is actually an accent that has often been considered the accent that goes along with the dialect of standard British English. So there's the difference between an accent and a dialect. The dialect is the grammar and the vocabulary and how that is all put together. So you can see a dialect on paper, but then the accent is how you pronounce the words within that dialect. So RP is basically the family of accents that goes with standard British English dialect. So we're hearing from a lot of the actors in this movie speak in an RP accent in their own real lives. So, for example, Hugh Grant was the first one you mentioned. Hugh Grant, as he would say it himself, you've got that Bath set of words.
Or as I'm saying, Grant, in my very American accent. Yeah.
So he would never say Hugh Grant unless he was doing a different accent. But in his own RP accent, that would be Grant, because it fits into a set of words that are called the Bath set. But they have a different long back vowel instead of the trap set, which in accents outside of the southeast of England, there's no distinction. It's just like in America, Bath and trap. So Hugh Grant as he would call himself. There's Colin Firth. He has an RP accent. He speaks with the same kind of accent. You've got Emma Thompson also. She has more of a classical RP accent. Alan Rickman, of course, the late, great Alan Rickman. Almost all of his characters, except the one I think he does in another classic that's shown at this time of year. He plays the villain in Die Hard.
Oh, of course. I'm thinking Christmas happy movies. Yes, Die Hard, so Christmas. For me, also, Harry Potter is like a Christmas thing that I'll watch too. Good point. For people who don't know Alan Rickman now.
People who've never heard of Alan Rickman, what planet are you on?
In case you don't know, Snape, let's just say. Let's forget about accents for a moment, but his voice, he has this very distinctive tone. It's very deep. It's very rich to me. I feel like we're talking about different accents and we're lumping our RP speakers kind of together. But for Alan Rickman, for me, it's his idiolect. It's like, oh my God, I could close my eyes and I could just hear that tone of his voice and I know that it's him. You know what I mean?
So that's the distinction between voice and accent. They're very distinctive things. You've got accent and dialect, which are kind of like accent is part of dialect. But then voice, that includes things like timbre, pitch, and so on and so forth. But with Alan, that's more of his voice that is very distinctive.
Right, yeah. You hear that before the accent, I feel.
Yeah, most of his characters that he plays speak in an RP accent, except for that one I told you, his name, I think is Gruber, the character he plays. Kind of a German accent in there, but still got the same voice. Different accent slightly, but same voice of Alan Rickman.
Oh, very good point.
Keira Knightley, she's another RP speaker. And Bill Nye, his accent is mostly usually RP, but every now and then it does sound a little bit like he's from Southeast London. So it's, this is the thing. A lot of people, we're multi-accental. Our accents will sometimes change on a dial depending on talking to, right?
100%.
So with Bill Nye, most of the time he's sounding RP, and then sometimes a little bit will come in.
Can I pause you there for a second? So we have a list of people who are like, oh, we're going to put them on the RP umbrella. But if you think about the characters in this movie, Bill Nye plays this rock star. I think part of his character is he's a little rough around the edges sometimes, right? So maybe you can hear that in his accent sometimes too, because he's a rock star. He's got lots of money. So he's a bit more affluent. And there's a whole thing about class that between like the US and the way the Brits see class that we maybe not are going to get into right now. But you've got Bill Nye, who's the rock star. And then lumped in the same category right now, we've got Hugh Grant with his accent. And he's like the prime minister in the movie too. So for you, I bet you're hearing some slight distinctions between that. Is that true?
It's really important to make that distinction between class and accent as well, because even though it does tend to be that most upper class people will speak with a certain range of accents, in Britain the way it works out, and you see this in a lot of linguistics books, it's like a pyramid. So where it is in terms of sociolinguistics, higher up the class range, when you get to upper class people like peers of the realm, like dukes and duchesses and the king and princess and all of those kinds of people, they tend to have a range of RP accents, and RP goes from there down into upper middle class and middle class. As you come down this pyramid, as you come down into like middle class, lower middle class, and into working class, you've got much wider range of local accents that are very distinctively different within a few miles of each other. And even one town or city could have quite a few different features compared to one that is like 30-minute drive away. And that's where you come down the pyramid. So you'll find that it is a sociolinguistic thing. So a lot of these people are playing characters that, even though it might be the prime minister, even though it might be a rock star, it doesn't matter. They're still kind of like upper middle class people.
Right.
Characters in this. Saying that a prime minister can't be working class. And that if you're working class, you can't have an RP accent. That's not what we're saying, because people can speak in different accents depending on to whom they're speaking or what the situation is. With those people I point out, they would all fit under that umbrella of RP. The people who don't, however, that would be characters such as the one we mentioned, which was the Welsh person.
From the outside, we think of RP. Oh, RP is just one thing. But you're saying RP can be kind of seen as a pyramid, and I'm visualizing it as more of a 3D pyramid, like Egyptian pyramid, in that we have class, but we also have geographic location. So thinking of the base of the pyramid is actually much, much, much wider than that. It's going to contain more accents. And the more you move up the pyramid, the less variety I think there would probably be. Yeah. So that's super interesting, because often we think working class, we think of maybe a 2D pyramid and just a bar at the bottom, but really it's about place as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Super interesting. Yeah. So you're going to get more variety down towards the bottom of the pyramid. And so, for example, maybe since we talked about a Welsh accent, maybe we can also bring up Liam Neeson as well, because a lot of Americans, at least who are watching this movie, might not pick up on some of those Irish features of his accent.
Yes, that's right. Liam Neeson is from Northern Ireland. He was born in Ballymena, and that's part of the UK, but that's the northern part of the island of Ireland. So he has a very distinctive Northern Irish accent. There are some features in there that you might hear that come out there, and that he might have a word like, for example, his trap words turn into trap, like man, can. So they're quite open. They're quite flat. There's no tensing in the tongue. It's not man, it's ah. It could be slightly back as well. So for a lot of people in Northern Ireland, you might hear mon, especially if they're from somewhere like Belfast or something like that. And also a very distinctive thing about Northern Irish accents is the intonation. So there's very different intonation that sometimes people think they sound like they're asking a question, even though they're making a statement. And so you might hear that, and the way he speaks as well. But again, he doesn't have like a very local accent. It's between that and RP as well. But then you've got, what's his name? The guy from The Office, the British Office. Martin
Freeman, of course, the one we were just talking about with the love interest. All I Want for You is Christmas, right?
Yeah, Martin Freeman, his accent tends to be a little bit what we might call estuary. It's not London, it's not Cockney, which is what you're going to hear from Martin McCutcheon, right? It's somewhere in the middle between London Cockney, where Martine McCutcheon, who plays Natalie, is very local East End London. And then you've got Martin Freeman plays John. So John, you'll hear some glottal stops there when he's talking as well, but it's somewhere between RP and local London, traditional London accent. So he's kind of halfway between the two. So that's more of a general Southeast England accent that's often referred to as estuary, because that's named after the Thames estuary. So it's all around the area.
That makes sense. Okay, so we just talked about Martine McCutcheon, and we talked about Martin Freeman. And definitely, she would be considered working class. If we're thinking of that pyramid again, she's working class from a specific area. Would you say that Martin Freeman's character is also kind of, if we were to generalize, kind of working class as well?
Like I say, it's really hard these days to determine class. It kind of
it's more place.
All of these, again, these are perceptions. For example, if somebody was to walk into a certain pub somewhere and they're speaking in an RP accent, they might be beaten up because the perception that they are, that word you used earlier, posh. And the same sort of thing could happen if somebody started talking in a very local, regional accent if they walked into a gentleman's club, even though they were dressed in like a three-piece suit and a tie and everything, maybe even a top hat. If they started talking in a more local accent, then there would be a perception, another negative perception of them. So it's really hard to say, oh, well, that person is obviously middle class or that person's But like we were talking about, the ranges and all of those features become a lot more distinct and easier to hear when you got local people not speaking homogenized kind of non-regional accent. Similar kind of thing in the United States, where you've got localized accents and then you've got this so-called general American accent where you can tell where someone's from, because there's that perception of standard.
Then you've got someone who sounds maybe more academic versus somebody, again, we could say working class. Of course, all
that kind of traditional snobbishness, really, that is part of something called accent bias.
Exactly.
And we're all part of that. Like, we all have our own biases, but these are just all based on perceptions and ideas and beliefs. So with Martin Freeman's character, he might be if you were to guess, it's probably middle class, but you can't tell because so many other things come into class. Somebody might judge someone's class and basically, where did your father school? If he went to Cambridge or Oxford or Eton, then he's going to be upper class, right? Most likely, 99% chance of that. But if you went to a comprehensive school, you're probably going to be middle class or working class. And then there's so many other things that come into it because it's like centuries old. But an accent is just like something that ebbs and flows around.
Absolutely. I was going to say that's...
Martine, she's got this very local London accent that sounds like it's from the east of London. And interestingly enough, I think she was in EastEnders, which is a long-running soap opera set in a fictional part of East London. And she's quite well known. She's quite famous for having that accent. That's her own accent. She's not putting on. And that's a very local London accent that a lot of people would think, oh, well, yeah, it's obviously working class. But again,
it's a whole mix of things. Yeah. And I think what you said was really important. We said there's perceptions, there's biases, there's reasons that we have these impressions. And maybe if we're talking about a movie, the character themselves, maybe that's part of the character that's super important. Like you said earlier, you want to help people sound like other people. Yeah. And so that's super important. So I think the takeaway here is there's so much more than meets the eye. We started talking about originally sounds, but now we're talking about class, we're talking about place and time, and we haven't even gotten into all these other things.
Well, one thing that's really interesting with Natalie, the character that Martine plays, is there's that moment in the movie towards the end where Hugh Grant, the Prime Minister, turns up in his big car to try to find her, and he goes into this housing estate and he goes to this, I believe it's a terraced house, which basically is what we call one of those like houses that has got one house on the one side.
Yeah, we would call it a row house.
Yeah, row house, exactly. We call them terraces in Britain. And so basically, I think all of that plays into it.
Hello. Is Natalie here?
Oh, where the fuck is my fucking coat? Oh, hello.
Hello.
This is my mum and my dad and my Uncle Tony and my Auntie Glyn.
Very nice to meet you.
And this is the Prime Minister.
Yes, we can see that, darling.
So they're using her accent as a kind of a lazy shortcut to say, oh, she's like very down to earth. She's a working class girl. She feels a little bit unsure, like, oh, I'm out of my depth. Oh, with all these posh people at number 10 Downing Street. So they get like that. And then she's all of a fluster until, oh, the highest man in the country falls in love with her. And so he tracks her down, goes to her family's small house. And there's that point where her mom opens the door and all the family are piled up in this narrow...
in the entryway, let's say.
Hallway. Yeah. And they're all kind of clambered together and she comes down. You can see the stairs, which is a very typical layout in a lot of these small houses, right? I've lived in more than one house like this.
Yeah, I lived in a row house in Philly.
The stairs go straight up. Yeah. Obviously, that imagery is very carefully chosen, where he's come out of his posh, like Downing Street in Westminster to go somewhere, probably in the East End or North London or somewhere. As like they're all there. They're all like little urchins.
And the car is probably bigger than the hallway. Yeah, exactly.
He's in love with you. We're going to the local schools, go to the pantomime. So it's that kind of short.
Yeah, I think what you said was really important. Shortcuts, they're biases, but they're important for people on the outside because, for example, in the US, we might need that shortcut to also understand what's going on, because otherwise we might not understand the relationship or the power dynamics that might be in play. Just to add that in there. We've mentioned like a lot of little things that people aren't noticing. So I wanted to thank you for coming on today again, Mark. I love talking to you all the time. And I love that we now share the movie in general. And it makes me want to watch it again because 'tis the season. I want to watch Die Hard. I want to watch some Harry Potter. And I just want to like snuggle in and get comfortable and watch some of these movies, but also for people to like just pay more attention. Because I think the general public doesn't usually find this stuff as fascinating to us. And those little clues, they're in there. They're little breadcrumbs that people can then get curious about. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge about this from a perspective that I certainly don't have and really digging into these rabbit holes for us today.
Yep, no problem. You're very welcome. Thank you for indulging me in my obsession.
Hey, I mean, we have a club already, so if anybody else wants to join the club, welcome to our club of obsessing over language and accents, I'll say happy holidays and have a great new year, and don't forget to shovel out front so people don't slip.
Yep.
Awesome. See you
Exactly.
soon, Mark. See you next
See
year.
you.
Bye. And just like I knew Mark would enjoy the movie, I know that you will too if you've never seen it. And if you have seen it before, I hope you see it with new ears, as it were. Because now, when you watch it, I think you'll pay a bit more attention to how people speak and maybe what it might be implying, so that you're going to get a lot more out of the movie. And if you found this episode helpful in any way, please subscribe and leave a review. It's actually really helpful to me. I'm Bianca, your personal American accent coach, and I want you to know that your voice is your choice. Be sure to sign up for my mailing list and come to the monthly masterclass for free. Thanks again for listening. I hope to see you in the next episode.